Let's talk about Qantas and their position where they've gone in response to the ACCC. Now, again, I mentioned here that the shortened way to explain this on television is, again, to basically say that it feels like what Qantas said today to the courts was, okay, when you buy a ticket, you don't buy a contract for us to necessarily deliver the exact time that we are booking. Instead, kind of roughly, we'll sort of hopefully get you there. 9 times out of 10, we should be able to get you there, but we reserve the right to be able to move you here, there and everywhere. But again, and because these things are being argued, I don't want to get myself into trouble in any way, but still, hardly a jury trial, I'd imagine, in this scenario, but still. Which is, Bronwyn, the company has admitted 48 hours the system meant that they were selling tickets to flights that technically didn't exist. That's why the ACCC is going after them. The idea that, okay, yes, sometimes they have to cancel flights, that's nothing new, but it's a little bit of an idea about how grey this is, that you think you're buying the midday flight to Melbourne. You think you're buying the 1 p.m. flight to Brisbane. You're not. You're buying sort of hopefully the 1 o'clock flight to Brisbane.
Yeah, well, it's a very technical defence. I think the real question is, what did the CEO and the chairman of the board and the rest of the board, for that matter, know that this was being done? And did they see that by doing it, they would get a financial advantage? That'll be the real test, because the technical defence may well succeed, but it's the intent with which it's done that I think the ACCC has gone ahead with the prosecution.
Yeah, I mean, and again...
And it stinks to high heaven.
That's the point, right? So again, Nicholas, I understand that the 1 o'clock flight to Brisbane is affected by a lot of different things, from crews not being able to board in Adelaide to the winds that might be there on the second and third air. I get all of that, right? But selling tickets to flights that don't exist, there has to be a penalty for it.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think Qantas, they've got the status as our national carrier. The truth is that there are a lot of benefits they get from the regulatory arrangements in this country, and so we have every right to judge them to a high standard. And having a situation where they continue to sell flights on tickets on a flight that got cancelled 48 days earlier, or they wait 47 days before notifying you that a particular flight has been cancelled, is not good enough. It's simply not good enough. And I tell you what's going to be interesting this week. We had Qantas in the Senate last week, but they've got their AGM coming up this Friday, and I reckon it's a case of pack the popcorn, because there'll be a lot of angry shareholders that'll have a lot of questions for not just the CEO, not just the chair, but some of those directors as well.
Well, it's the first thing their PR department's got right in a while. Put it on a Friday when hopefully nobody's paying attention. So the 6 p.m. news, which often is one of the least watched of the week, everyone moves on and starts talking about everything else that's around. But again, Caroline, people's faith in the aviation sector right now, not amazing. You would imagine that it's Qantas's opportunity to get this behind them as fast as possible. Who knows whether it ends up in a settlement as suggested by the good folks over at the AFR. But do you think that Australians, again, I mean, when Nicholas talks about national airline and all of that stuff, right, I understand that that's been the longhand branding and all the rest of it when it was a taxpayer-funded organisation, but now it's been proven to be a pretty nasty competitor when it's gone after the smallest of airlines, from long gone airlines like Compass and Ansett, and we know what happened in the early days of Virgin. But I just don't know that Qantas is playing with the full hand that it thinks that it does. I think the Australian people are kind of gone, you know what, you're just another business. Yep, we remember the song, but you're just another business.
Oh, look, I think they've lost a lot of goodwill with the Australian public, and it's not just about how they conducted themselves during COVID, which is letting all these people go and then, doing this to their customers who had faithfully bought tickets. It's one thing to say you might not get on the midday flight on Monday to Melbourne. It's another thing to continue selling tickets for 48 days after that to a flight is cancelled. But on top of that, they've had the brand reputation, quite rightly, from jumping on the virtue signalling bandwagons of The Voice and same-sex marriage and lecturing the country about all these different political campaigns, spending how much money putting the yes sign and flying yes advocates around the country, blocking the Qatar Airways flights from coming, which would have brought prices down for customers. So how can they can't possibly think that they can go into a court case with the country behind them.